Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Quentin Ring, and I am the director of Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center. I am very pleased to welcome you to a reading celebrating the publication of Changes, an anthology of the Green Poets of Beyond Baroque. The Green Poets is a writing collective and a free weekly workshop here at Beyond Baroque, and more recently, virtually. And we are thrilled to be able to publish an anthology of poems from the workshop and to have a number of the contributors to the anthology here to read for us tonight. Beyond Baroque is, as many of you know, a literary space in Venice, California, and we are dedicated to the possibilities of language through cultivating new writing, presenting contemporary literature and art, and building a diverse literary community. I'd like to start by acknowledging Beyond Baroque's presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to these peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent dispossession of their land. Beyond Baroque's programming includes readings, writing workshops, and art exhibits. At the moment, our programs are still almost entirely virtual. That's in part due to ongoing concerns about COVID-19, and in part due to the fact our spaces continue to undergo some renovations. I don't expect we'll be fully open to the public until January 2022. We're still working out the final details of that, so please do stay tuned. We do have some upcoming virtual events. On November 11th, we have a reading with the World Stage Press featuring Connie Williams, as well as a number of other great poets published by the World Stage Press. On November 17th, we have a reading with Kaya Press that features Trong Tran, Maida Vang, Kathy Lin Che, and Kathy Xiong. Please do check both of those readings out. I think they're going to be great. A major component of our mission also involves offering workshops to writers of all levels. These include our Wednesday night poetry workshop, which has been running continuously since 1969, is currently being facilitated by the poet Joseph Rios. Meanwhile, our Monday night fiction workshop is being taught by the writer Raquel Baker. Additionally, we have an intensive workshop on October 30th with Jim Cushing, and another intensive workshop on November 6th with Cynthia Guardado. Additionally, we have a fiction workshop later in November with Lori Horowitz. You can find a link to those in the chat. Again, those are all virtual, but please do check them out. Tonight, we have for you a collection of writers from the Green Poets workshop at Beyond Baroque. This workshop in particular, I think embodies something I find quite inspiring. It's a collection of folks who are simply passionate about poetry. They've all come to writing poetry at different stages in life. They pursued it with a pure dedication to the art form. I find this simply beautiful, and I'm so grateful to the example they give to all of us in their love for poetry and in their commitment to pursuing the art. It's for that reason that I'm just really, really proud that we've been able to publish this book. We don't have Changes for sale online yet, but it is available in our bookstore. Please feel free to email info@beyondbaroque.org if you'd like to come in and purchase a copy. The bookstore is not open for walk-ins, but we do take appointments. I should also say that we would very much appreciate any donations you can make as part of the evening. You'll find a link to that in the chat or on our website. COVID-19 has been quite devastating for many, many arts organizations, and Beyond Baroque is no exception. So any support you can provide is greatly appreciated. Finally, I'd also like to say a few words of thanks. I'm really just very grateful to the editor of Changes, who is also our host for the evening, Greg Bell. He's done an incredible amount of work on this anthology, and he's just been a joy to work with. I should also give special thanks to the co-editors, Estella Ramirez and Chris Northrup, for all their work on it. My thanks too to Jody Zellen for her design work on the book, and also to my predecessor, Richard Modiano, for putting the project in motion. This book has been a long time coming, but I think and I hope that it was very much worth the wait. So thank you all for coming, and the biggest thanks of all is to the poets. As I said, it's just a joy to be able to publish a work like this and then to be able to hear them read. So without further ado, I think I'd just like to welcome our host for the evening, Greg Bell. He's a wonderful poet, wonderful editor, facilitator of the Green Poets Workshop, and all around a great literary citizen. Greg, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Quentin, for that one. How would you like to be my PR agent?
I mean, I do a little freelancing.
Thank you for your wonderful words. not only about the Green Poets, but certainly about the anthology. I want to echo the credits that you give to Richard Modiano, to Jody Zellin. I want to mention Liz Camford, who was instrumental in seeing this through, and also Gloria. Absolutely, Gloria. Thank you for being in my corner. Gloria Vando Hickok, who will be reading with us as well, was a contributor to the anthology. It took a village. But just to give you an example of how things start, I think I'll mention that I was wet behind the ears in Green, the Green Poets, and just starting to get into the seat for the workshops. When Chris Northrup came into the workshop one morning and said, "Why don't we do an anthology?" Well, who knew at the time that, Chris, you were kicking off an ignoramus who knew nothing about doing an anthology into 7 years of a project? It's required a lot of patience on all of our parts, and I especially want to reiterate my thanks to Beyond Baroque and to Quentin for seeing this project through, shepherding it through. Without much more to say, I just want to point out that there are a number of us who are gone, and I would like to dedicate this reading to them. Many of them, a good many of them, are going to be reflected in the reading, and I want to thank those who will be doing that. I want to welcome Mary Lou Newmark and Basil Luskas, Nick Eldridge, who are not in the anthology, but have expressed a desire to be here and to help. And they are going to be doing some reading for us. I want to thank you for that. I would like to, what I'm going to be doing, I'm not going to be reading anything of mine. I'm going to be providing some of the interstitial material, the connective tissue that binds this concatenation of poets into what I hope is a cohesive whole. And I'd like to begin by reading something which is the ultimate epigraph of the manuscript, and then we'll just go from there. First, I have to find it. Here we go. By the way, I forgot to mention the extraordinary legacy. We've been around now, what, 53 years, Beyond Baroque. And we have George Drury Smith to thank for that. So with a nod to him, I'm going to go all the way back to Publius Ovidius Naso, Ovid, in his Metamorphoses, in a translation by Todd Connor, whom I directed in a one-man show that he performed. And I hope that this will help to set our ship sailing in the right direction. Every shape is transient and is born for transformation. Time, like a river, flows forever forward, wave on wave, and as each swell propels another one in front of it, another wave is making chase and pushing from behind. And so what once existed now is not, and what was not exists. So it goes and goes and goes and goes again. All right, so our first poem in the book is by Diane August, Diane, I see that you are with us. You got into the inner sanctum. I see that lovely photograph. Are we still going to have Mary Lou read your poem?
Go ahead, Sid.
Yes, please.
Okay, by all means. Well, I want to welcome you back with us. And with that, I want to introduce Mary Lou Newmark, who is a marvelous addition to Green Poets, who has come aboard since long since we began this never-ending journey that now is coming to an end for changes. Mary Lou is going to be reading Genesis 3.
This is Genesis 3 by Diane August. Immersed in his Big Bang spectacular, God slings stars with abandon. He remembers to check on his Eden experiment. Adam trumps sublime, unaffected by God's expressionist formations. Glimpsing this Adam on occasion for millennia, God is up to his neck in discontent. Adam is clearly not his masterpiece. God arrays Eden Theater for naughty comedy. It's too idyllic here. They need goading. I'll use snake. And that Adam needs to be split. That's it. I'll scare the shit out of it. He clicks his remote to shift stations for entertainment. He warns Adam in his movie baritone. All this garden is yours, but if you eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, I just planted in your face, you will surely die. Trapped in Adam, Eve's emotions and desires for better clothes are stifled. God separates Adam while it sleeps. Eve bursts free and inquisitive. First, she sings like songbirds. As she realizes what she missed, she weeps, then dances on a mound of gratitude, then sings, then weeps. Eventually, Eve finds Snake, basking prone in the middle of their river path, slow-licking honey he has spread over himself. Eve's hips undulate as she tastes the honey. Meanwhile, Adam, without Eve, wanders Eden clueless, counting, naming, and renaming animals. Zebra, no. Giraffe, yes. God adds to his libretto. Snake will connive with Eve, will hiss comprehending responses to her desires, will mention what she might do only if she wants to. So they coil and slither, endlessly sticky. Enthralled, God studies Snake, engrossed within his role to provoke human innocence. Eve is entranced by perfume of ripe persimmons. Adam is shaky from trying to understand Eve. Snake cajoles Eve and Adam to sample luscious, slippery persimmons. Sign at Eden's gate, closed until further notice.
Let's indulge in a long-standing Green Poets tradition and give her a hand. Both Mary Lou's wonderful reading and Diane's marvelous the wry and satirical poem. Okay, so this is a perfect example of how intertextual this whole thing is. We are all following in other people's wakes, whether it's biblical or whether it goes all the way back to the Mahabharata, to Lao Tzu and Aeschylus and Sophocles. We're all following behind others. And I consider that what we're doing is engaging in a long-standing conversation back and forth. That said, the next poem is by and will be read by B.J. Cotton-Jeffords. The title is Green's Symphony. And B.J., take it away.
Green Symphony, Nepali coast, rushing, stupendous, high voltage, power flooding wide eyes, burnt with white light, scanning eggshell blue sky, frame torrent, forest, lime, emerald, loden, acid green, flowing canopy, dense as midnight, pregnant growth, cloying, thick, lush fragrance. Creamy Pikaki, Plumeria, tuberose, magnificent. Red black lava earth, Pele's own, at home with herself, in her intensity, in her immensity, in her riveting peace.
Yowzum. Thank you, BJ. That's a wonderful piece of work, and I just want to get back to this whole idea of intertextuality and the ongoing conversation we're engaged in. You know, when many years ago, more years than I can count, I was driving across country with a friend, and I had one book with me. It was a small pocketbook anthology that had been edited by William Carlos Williams. And there was a marvelous foreword in it in which he quotes Thomas Hardy and keeps returning to the refrain, his refrain, William Carlos Williams. He was a man who used to notice such things. And I was so taken with that all these years, I've remembered that phrase, and I had to look that poem up. And as an epigraph for the first chapter, I included the first stanza of the poem Afterwards by Thomas Hardy. I'd like to just read that for you. It's 4 lines, and I apologize for turning the light on, but I have to read from this text, and it helps to see. So this again is from Afterwards by Thomas Hardy. When the present has latched its postern behind my tremulous stay, and the May month flaps her glad green leaves like wings, delicate filmed as new spun silk, will the neighbors say he was a man who used to notice such things? Yes, that's our number one job, isn't it? To notice. I'm going to jump to a poem from chapter 2, which perhaps I should have put right here in the book because of the conversation with BJ. It's Akimi Shimoji's Settlement of Green Poets, which will be read by her daughter, Maiko Maya. Maiko, it's all yours.
Hi there. Let me put these on. The Settlement of Green Poets by Akemi Shimoji. The way to a place, green poets, which Mr. Robertson, Bill, pioneered. How long ago? I don't know. Bill Robertson, a man with keen inner hearing and sight for beat and sparkles of words. After Mr. Robertson went Florida war, Mr. Hickok, Bill, led the settler of Green Poet's sight. Bill Hickok, a man of fine inner hearing and sight for the pulse and force of words. Dandy American men. We poets, all unique, succeed the work of Green Poet's sight, evergreen space through. Go the seasons round and round, cultivating, tilling, sowing, tending, and harvesting. Good morning. What is your harvest today? Mine are sprouts that appeared with sunrise. Not enough time to ferment to spirits, yet to grow greener.
I just love that. A man with marvelous inner hearing for beats and sparkles of words. And this reminds me that not everybody has to write in the same way. And one of the things that I insist on is that we cultivate each individual voice. And I think that you'll find brought home again tonight how each of these poets. The next poem is from Bob Boucher, and it is entitled Justice is a Woman. Please welcome Bob.
Justice is a woman, a tall and regal woman, always robed in white. Her eyes are covered over. She is without sight. She can't see your face. She can't tell your race. She is almost blind. Her ears are always open. She can always hear your heartbeat when you're lying, your sorrow when you sigh, your tears drop when you're crying, your silence when you're dying. A tall and regal woman armed with balance scales. How heavy are the wealthy with their money bags? How heavy are the homeless in their filthy rags? How heavy are the lawyers with their legal briefs? How heavy are the victims in their silent grief? A tall and regal woman, sword of sharpened steel, where judgment will be final, there will be no appeal.
All right, let's give him a hand. It's good to know that there is at least the idea of justice that permeates our consciousness. Our next poet is L.S. Larry Hicks. I haven't seen Larry for a while, but I'm pleased to finally bring his work and the anthology into the world of being with the help of a good many people here tonight. Larry's poem is Spots.
Intimacy? Three kinds, I think. There's the physical type. No, it's not overrated, but it is a distant third. Just two bodies sweating is one. Far better is the emotional, two bodies seeking, one heartbeat, one spirit. It's found in romance and the twining of twins. Still second rate. You know what we all long for, what we've all had but lost. It's the intimacy of one before one became two. One fullness, one surround, one breathing there in our first place, in deeper than love itself.
All right, let's give a hand. Larry, you threw a curve at me. You read a different poem, but that's all good.
My
That was called
mistake.
First
You
Place.
are correct. Well, I guess we'll have to let it stand. I apologize.
Yeah, well, it's all good. It's all good. That poem is entitled First Place. Next up, we have a poem by William Wild Bill Hickok, one of our dear departed, and his stepson, Paul Perez, will be reading it. Paul will be reading The Softness of Your Back.
In the dark, I turn, while my sinews struggle to rid me of tomorrow's impending pain. I feel the softness of your lower back forestall the demons of the night. Another chance at dreamless sleep. Sweeping sunrise finds me half awake, half naked, my nose snug against your upper back, an elbow tingling from the crush of sleep, mouth so dry I gasp for air. I seek solace in the nape of your neck. We awaken and dismiss the serpents of the night with a kiss that seeps slowly through the day and lasts until the late night news guy says goodnight. Once more, we edge into the land of wordless rhythm and endless touch. Once again, we are us, just us.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
beautiful. Wow.
All the more plangent for missing him. We now have a poem that's coming up from Genie Nakano. But before I introduce you, Genie, any further, I just want to backtrack to one of the epigraphs for the first chapter. It's really short, and it's from Mark Strand in a work called The Heartbeat of Creative Work and the Artist's Task to Bear Witness to the Universe. The quote is shorter than that. It's such a lucky accident, having been born, that we're almost obliged to pay attention. So Jeannie's been paying a certain kind of attention, and she's going to share with us her poem that I believe ends first chapter. It's a marvelous piece of work called Holy Bones.
Holy Bones.
It says for me to unmute myself. I thought I was unmuted. Aren't I? Okay, I'm unmuted.
I can hear you, honey.
Okay,
Can hear you.
let me just, can I just do something real quick? Sorry. Okay. A wise woman in Norwich, England once said, "When we are old and careless," inside my bones clattered. For a moment, I was free. Cold bones, lukewarm blood, wrist of a sparrow, and no wings. My left hip clicks in a silver joint, unstable yet unbalanced. Titanium tensile strength decrees to outlast me. Something of beauty, yet not beautiful. an old woman who knows herself, the one I want to be. The abbess of the temple died at 2:45 a.m. Her last words, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
I know I
That's it.
changed the ending from the book because when I first wrote it, my editor said if I ever wrote that, she'd drop me. So I didn't put in the last stanza, but that's the way it was really supposed to be, Greg.
Okay. I get another curve thrown at me. You know, I read every one of these poems, I would say at least 30 times. And I know when you're not reading the poem the way it ended up in the book. But that's all right. I like that stanza too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. Okay, so we're moving on now to Act 3. Excuse me, Act 2. The name of the first act is As It Is. And so I would say the key theme for the first chapter of the first book is to pay attention. So what happens now once we're paying attention, is that all we're supposed to do? We just record what is, or can we step in? I want to share one of the quotes from E.B. White as an epigraph for chapter 2. Very briefly, writers do not merely reflect and interpret life. They inform and shape life. And with that said, I'd like to introduce a poem who absolutely informed and shaped life with her wonderful observation and her own particular and peculiar point of view. I'm speaking of Helen Comay. Helen was so beloved for herself and for her work by the Green Poets that I had at least 5 people volunteer to read her work. Unfortunately for those 5 people, I said to them, look, you've got your own work to read. So I recruited Mary Lou Newmark at the time, who was not going to be reading. I recruited her to read Helen, and she's going to be reading Emergence.
Emergence by Helen Comay. Sometimes I dream I am the first woman emerging from the cold primeval water, slippery as a seal, with the sea brine still clinging to my naked body. I see my knotted, wavy hair, pleated with viney seaweed, water falling down my back and my breasts like tributaries from a mountain after a heavy rainfall. My still partially webbed feet stumble over the prehistoric skeletons of the brave who ventured before me using their fins for feet. When I look around with my salty sea eyes, I see the beauty of the land as Eve, awakening from her primordial sleep, must have seen it, violent in its verdant outbursts, like sounds that echo and re-echo over contours of the land. I see dots of color I could never have imagined in the aquamarine womb from which I emerged, and look to the heavens to see a midnight sky where twinkling entities, sunfish, rays, and starfish swim and dance in the flowing moonlight. I emerge, shedding the receding sea behind me.
Whoa. Whew.
Isn't that a wonderful reminder of just how fabulous Helen's work still is? Thank you, Mary Lou. Well read, both poems. Very much appreciate that. I want to return to the idea of making waves for poets. But first I have to figure out what kind of mistake I just made. There, I minimized the screen and I didn't mean to touch that. So I'm going to read from the next epigraph. Actually, I thought I was going to read from the next epigraph, but it's moved. So give me a moment. Yeah, here we go. This is from Jeanette Winterston. Writers are not here to conform. We are here to challenge. We're not here to be comfortable. We're here really to shake things up. That's our job. And I quote that as introductory to a poet who does just that very thing and does it beautifully. The poet is Clara Acerno, and she's going to be reading Gathering Water in Open Arms.
Hello. I just have to say, I remember the first time Helen read that poem and it blew me away. And I remember she didn't think it was that great. And we were all just, our mouths were agape at her poetry. She is missed. Okay, Gathering Water in Open Arms. Accidental gates left open. Baby floats face down. What did she see? Digging in water for sinless clouds, covered in mud, ready, leaves for a war dance, not able to fight. Women with black veils, wombs carrying guns, game standing on sick ground, cats on a hunger strike, big dog shows fangs, species, religions, humans, dropping of senseless bombs, mouths open, combing ground, assault fire left to right, sung in screaming odes. Throw her back in, make her skin talk, to still quiet, to still trees quiet for their answers.
All right, what did I tell you? Thank you, Claire. You bring it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's not enough, as Jeanette Winterston said, to be comfortable. We need to raise these issues. On the other hand, we have a wonderful flight of fancy coming from the next poet, whom we've already seen, reading her mother's poem. Michael Maya is going to be reading Floating Feathers.
I fly high above the ocean in search of my destination. I find a resting place where I can reflect on journeys past and project a vision for the journey ahead. As I notice him in the depths of the dark chasm beneath the surface of the shimmering icy waters. Suddenly, I could feel the shifting of the earth as the last set of heavy winds attempt to lift me up from under my wings. I let them pass and stand firm, feeling the beam of light above caress my feathers and warm the sea making it calm and clear. For a moment, I could not move. And at the same time, I felt as if I were falling and I surrendered to his world. The sea was filled with bright blues, greens, yellows, and reds. He circles my spot, and we are caught in the rapture of our intrigue. He intrigues me, and I want to know him. We are enveloped by the sensation of definite peace and do not take heed to the warnings given to us by the winds and the tides. I will never penetrate the depth of his being, as he will never rise to grasp my panoramic vision. In the deep sleep, we are together in our dream. As the sun abandons us toward a new horizon and the cold winds return, my appetite awakens me, and I remember that I am a bird and he is a fish. I quickly dive in the water and swallow him whole.
Oh. Yeah, sometimes we need a little sense of humor, don't we? Thank you. Michael, I really love how you introduce this poem and not reveal too much. We discover these things along the way, and that's part of the beauty of the poem. Thank you. Glad you could join us. All right, so now we have the birthday girl. Today is, well, today is your birthday, Janet. And I, for one, want to wish you a happy birthday. And I think everybody will joining me in wishing you a happy birthday as well.
Thank you. And in the past, I've shared my poem, Age Reversal. So instead of being 85, I think I'll be 58 today. That okay?
There you go. Janet is going to be sharing her poem, Thoughts from the Schoolyard.
All right. A little bit of a preface here. I think some of you know that I'm very involved in local politics as well as state politics. And a lot of the poetry that I write is designed for politicians to focus on things that I think and that we should consider important. And these are thoughts from a schoolyard. Now that we've had our school board election, what our students need is not just affection, but clear-headed thinking about the curriculum, making sure that what they're taught is the right thing for them. It's not only the city that needs to take note, but state politicians who garnered our vote, yet seem to forget how important our schools are. It makes you wonder, are their heads stuck in a jar? As I look at the students come and go, and the tall grasses wave to and fro, it's clear they're at the mercy of Mother Nature, as well as the whims of the legislature. We need to remind the leaders of our state that a surefire way to make it stay great is to invest in our students, the future of our nation, and ensure that they all get the finest education. This is from a university professor. I want to see good things happen. Thank you.
All right. Yes, let us not stint on the education of our young. To close Making Waves, the second chapter, we're going to go to William Robertson, Bill Robertson, the founder of Green Poets.
May I add something here? You haven't said anything about why Green Poets became Green Poets. I was one of the first in the group. Remember, we were nascent poets. The initial group just read poems by well-known poets, and we decided we wanted to write. And so he christened us Nascent Poets, Green Poets. Thank you for letting me add that.
All right, as a piggyback onto that, I saw Green Poets on the monthly calendar for Beyond Baroque, and I thought, wait a minute, this is right up my alley. I'm a green poet. I have a lot of issue, a lot of concern and a lot of issues with, shall we say, the proper care of planet Earth. Let's think about these green things. And I walked in, and to my surprise, I was told, no, 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 we're green because we're wet behind the ears. Okay, who am I to argue? But that said, let's get back to Bill Robertson, who was the founder. And there's a poem by him called Rockabye, which is going to be read by my old buddy, Nick Eldridge, whom I've known for many years. And Nick, bear with me. I'll just mention that I had just left a Green Poet workshop and went to a Trader Joe's, and I ran into you in Trader Joe's, and we stood there in the middle of the aisle, deflecting all the traffic in the aisle in Trader Joe's, until we decided that I should give you some information and that you might just be joining us. And by golly, I'm glad you did. All right, Nick, are you with us? Take it away.
I think he's muted.
Nick, you're muted.
No audio then, Nick. Am I unmuted?
There you go.
Okay. Greg, thanks for that. And the summary I have is, after our rather long catch-up conversation, you talked about this poetry group and you gave me a poem. You pulled it out of your breast pocket and gave it to me. I read it later. I thought, oh my God, this is good. I got to get into this because I've been a writer all my life, but you know, just occasionally something required a poem. And this stuff we've been reading, I've been hearing it. This book is going to be a knockout. This book is killer. This book is full of great stuff. And one of the things is Rockabye by Bill Robertson. My bedtime sailboat. My bedtime sailboat takes me off to sleep each night on a wide Greek river. Once on board, the weather tells me what kind of day I had. Stormy, peaceful, boring, bowling along at top speed, or parched, dry, flat, endlessly becalmed. You would think, who needs an indicator to tell how he feels? I do. I never know how the day really went till I lie down and set sail. I like it best when a brisk wind heels me over and we scud along, headed out toward my far, far destination. Where am I going? When am I going to get there? Listen, on this particular river, one should not be overly anxious to reach the other side.
What a wonderfully sly way of reminding us that when you make waves, be careful what you do. You might get in over your head. Okay, let's move on to chapter 3, or act 3 is what I call it. Before I introduce the poem and the reader, I'm going to resurrect an epigraph, if I can find it. Here we go. This is wonderfully succinct. It's by Eudora Welty. No art ever came out of not risking your neck. That's so good and so plangent. I'm going to read it again. No art ever came out of not risking your neck. Some of you may say, oh, well, she exaggerates, but I don't know. I don't think so. One of the poets, and I did not plan this way, but this is a perfect segue into our next poet, Selma Benjamin, who risked her neck any number of times right now is recovering from a a bad mishap. And Selma, we hope you're with us and that you're listening in and that you're feeling better. I spoke with Selma about somebody reading her poem, and she said, "Oh, it's not necessary." And I said, "Oh, but it is." And then she said, "Well, if somebody is going to read my poem, I would like for it to be Claire." So Claire Acerno is going to be reading Selma's Lament from My Native Country.
I am just floored to read this. I see your eyeball, Greg, but I don't see me, and I don't know if I should start. Greg.
I can do. Okay, there we
All right,
go.
there we go. I'm risking my neck reading this for Selma. I really am. Lament for My Native Country. Many years ago on another continent, a tree stood over a little world of petty minds and niggardly plots, separated from each other by thick stone walls topped with broken glass. Hungry watchdogs raised raucous voices to keep the stranger out of the dry, barren yards. Chickens scratched the dust, and children thumped balls against blank firewalls. Carpet beaters whacked, and in the windows appeared as in frames the piled feather beds. Lonely housewives with vacant smiles or yelling for children. Mask-like faces of clerks bored and bespectacled. White hats and pastry tubes downstairs in the bakery. Families watered tomato plants on balconies or sat there chatting in the evenings. Thick, querulous voices rose from below. The slow-witted brothers, owners of the chickens, bearded men, and white cat boys sang in the Hebrew language with their meals, and a melting violin played a Nazi marching song. Most of the yards were bare, but some sprouted a few pansies and forget-me-nots, a little famished grass and arbor. Some held rose bushes and inconspicuous trees which would burst into splendor unexpectedly, white pear blossom, smoky blue lilac, and the transcendental magic of red May. Plants changed with the season. Only the poplar stood aloof. High above the houses, it raised a full crown. Snow would not settle on it. Rain slid down its perpendicular form. Summer breezes and sun made its million of tiny leaves scintillate like chain armor. Storms beat it, made it hiss and groan, and the lightning performed a macabre dance around it. Some of the houses were struck by lightning, but not the tree. Storms hurled bricks and flower pots, but the poplar only dropped toy-like fruit in the fall. Snow changed the world underfoot, and bluish-white light issued from roofs and tree crowns and lamp standards. The poplar was immune, and in the summer, it held a silver coolness over the scorched, tawny ground. Obedient to unexplored laws, men followed their insect-like paths, made love and quarreled, built and tore down, grew and decayed. Poverty and stress bred hate and narrow minds, spilled over into an orgy of destruction with subtle knife twists and incredible savageries. The tree stood its ground, unrelated to the little urban world, drawing nourishment from the sick, bitter soil.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Selma.
Another example of how we bear witness as poets, as artists. This poem is set in the run-up to the years of World War II in Germany. And Selma was able to escape, I believe. Selma, if you're listening in, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 1936. It might have been 35. Selma, at the age of 16, escaped in a train alone to England. Much of her family followed after. And while in England, as they endured the Blitz, she met her husband-to-be, Alfred Benjamin, who was an extraordinary man. Alfred is, alas, no longer with us. But his work is going to be read by Basil Luskas, who is a member of Green Poets. And the work is VJ Day. Let me just point out to you that Alfred's work was photography. And before being expelled from Germany, told that he'd better disappear, among other things, he had photographed the burned out synagogues and been told that he'd better be gone by the morning. And I believe he left overnight by train. This particular poem celebrates something that I think we all want to celebrate, VJ Day. Basil, it's all yours. Basil, you're muted.
My apologies.
There you go.
Take two. VJ Day. I joined the crowds, marched to London Center. We dance, we love everything, everybody. Piccadilly, Trafalgar Square, no cars, no buses, only people, people everywhere. Whitehall, high buildings, flowers raining from above, soldiers, sailors, airmen, standing on window ledges, kissing girls that grabbed, toasting, singing, drunk. Sundown, we reach the palace. Shadows grow longer, pale moon, many sitting trees. I am restless, death abolished, happiness forever. I climb the lamppost to see the royal family. Floodlights hit the balcony, complete silence. Then king, queen, princesses, Churchill appear. Dream, reality? No sound. All mesmerized. Churchill's eyes beam. Slowly he raises his hand, forms his famous V sign. A roar from 1,000 lungs. An ocean of sound hits the air. Will not stop. The war is over. The war is over. Fireworks blaze across the firmament. The sky opens, music higher than the sky. Instruments and choruses grip our hearts. Ode to peace, ode to hope.
Thank you, Basil. Wonderfully read. Isn't it extraordinary that we actually had a member of our group who was with us for a number of years, who was witness to these historic events, not only one, but at least two. And that's why, Selma, if you're listening, We look forward to your return. The next poet has been away dealing with a number of challenges, but she too is a perfect example of how we are born to bear witness. How those of us who write find that as part and parcel of what we do. The next poet is Chris Northrup, and she's going to be reading Maple Sugar and White Gardenias.
White gardenias over her ear, hypnotic gaze, half open eyes. Lady Day slowly breathes a rapturous, cool sound, stripped to the bone in conversation, the sweet-assed saxophone. Unvarnished, battered, profane, addictive, seductive, survivor of flawless grace, inhabited the space. Spare, intimate, fragile, fierce, bittersweet, maple sugar dripping over the edge of time, between consciousness and dream, passionate desire and muted rage, in tearless cries, no alibis. Jazzy, languorous, beats that penetrate the heart, rubbing it raw, keeping time with longing, love, and infinite sorrow. You hear Billy, you feel Billy, you taste Billy in the nectar spilling out, rough and slow, from the intoxicating rhythm of a white gardenia unfolding just for you.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Wonderfully done, and an important part of what we remember. And what we remember, we need to make steps on what to improve upon. Our next poet is another of blessed memory, who departed us some years ago. His poem is going to be read by his son. The poet is Marvin Farber, and David Farber will be reading I Have Always Been a Dancer.
I've always been a dancer. Rhythmic compressions. I've always been a dancer. Masking Circorian expressions. Papa, I cannot catch a ball. Watch me strike out. Papa, I cannot catch a ball. Twisting, unseen spirals whirl about. Papa, why toss me the ball when I surely miss the basket? Papa, why toss me the ball? Flying, torso zooms high, a tisket, a tasket. Papa, do not make me a boxer. I don't want to fight. Papa, do not make me a boxer. Turning, strong lips churn vigorously light. I've always been a dancer. No shame, Papa, hardly pathetic. I've always been a dancer, rising, muscled legs sore, firmly athletic.
Let's give him a hand. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Greg.
How wonderful is that for David to read a poem in which his father has a refrain, Papa, fill in the blank. I think I was talking about intertextuality. We're all in a conversation with our forebears. And it's not just the writers. We're in our conversation of those who never picked up a pen. And it goes back, and it goes back, and it goes back again. There's just a wonderful plangency to that, and I really appreciate, David, that you were here to read that for us and for Marvin. Oh, okay, so our next poet is Steve Goldman, and he's going to be reading Statement. Steve, you're still muted.
Take that. How's that?
There you go.
Okay. I can contain myself on this. I am struck by the affinity and similarity of the poem Helen wrote, which I think was read by Mary Lou, to not one, but two masterpieces by Claire. I think this has to do with may have to do with it, unconscious appropriation. And I think this is what Auden meant by saying, good poets imitate and great poets steal. Stunning. Well, talk about intertextuality. Here's another sense of it. All right. Now, my poem, two quick caveats. One line in this poem is changed slightly from what exists in the book. I had an earlier copy, and that line that was there is better and more graceful, but that's the only change. Also, the poem has one pirated line, Janet, if you're listening, from the late, great Nikki Selditz, which I doubt any of you know, unless Harry, if you're in the audience. But here goes. Oh, boy. Statement. The spacious jewel of a single deep breath on a crystal morning of a mint-struck day, or taut autumn afternoon, or awash in the soft and riotous breezes of an evening in summer. Just to be alive at all, culture twisting without end, intrigue of meaning, vibrato of life, the ravishment of a single strawberry. I rejoice against my instructions in the world of movement and bodies and things. Orphaned now on the globe and alone with it, I drink the planet's water, piss it back, and if ephemeral, I am whole or nearly so. So here I live, a pinprick on this sprawling asphalt scab, backaches and root canals, the serial rebellion of the body, friends in dire trouble, grievous losses to Uncle Death, the dog next door incessantly barking, and the prick that owns it called neighbor. The variegated contents of the world in anguished and precarious balance, machine guns and languages, cesspools and prize roses, Dachau and St. Francis, Dante and children with cancer, Nobel prizes and beheadings, populations rotting dead on the ground, the little girl burned by the side of the road, first loves, miracles of salvation, lives of hell. Still, that dirty street, this clean window, that bird slanting the sky, the sheer particularity of each, the utter suchness of it all, apparently forever. Shopping in a shopping center this day, drenched in the real, which isn't. Hey, that guy is really walking over there. So, unworried at last, indemnified against fear, and ever nearer the frontier of myself being over, now I have time for eternity. But with the horror unforgotten, what is mine are these: friends, exertions, songs in the corners of the morning, I walk down the days of my life, beatitude in opulent glory.
Steve, I got to tell you that that poem is chock full of gems. There's so many lines that I will hope to steal one day.
Please do. That's what they're for.
You start off with the spacious jewel of a single breath.
Yeah.
You move to the ravishment of a strawberry
Yeah.
in opulent glory. Oh my goodness. It's full of them and I love it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so at long last, Nancy, you have been with us since the beginning, and at long last, you are going to be able to read your marvelous poem. This is the poet is N. Angela Dawson, and her poem is Immersion.
Am I unmuted? I am, yes?
Yes, you are.
Yes, you're good.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, thanks, Greg and everyone. Immersion. I don't need a spa to take the waters, to be ministered by others, also bent and mystified. No posh resort required to stroke me back into serenity. No doctor either, for that matter, to buttress up the mortal flesh. I am where I need, just with a canyon slope, all clover. California grass in winter, undeterred foments. And where, despite full afternoon, crickets daydream of the night. Wielded like a sorcerer's shaman wand, a lizarding road that whirls its way up from sea level, brought me to this physics site. A bungler blotched with inadvertent bruising. I inhale deep repair, exhale shallow seeming. The air served up so unguent from the flesh-long flocking grass. I lie myself down in it, clay straight and stretched across the ley-lined earth. Overhead, the field of clouds looks strewn and marbled with skeletal remains of unrecorded time.
Yowzum. Thank you, Nancy. I love that final image of the clouds, providing skeletal remains of unrecorded time, and how ephemeral they are.
Indeed.
Our next poet is an extraordinary inclusion. Gloria Vando Hickok has always been someone whose brain I could pick, who has helped to guide me through my journey in not only the anthology but in the work, whether it's the workshop or whether it's the actual work. Gloria has been a bastion of wisdom for me, and she's going to be reading a poem that she wrote that had to be included. It just had to be included. The title of which is My 90-Year-Old Father and My Husband Discuss Their Trips to the Moon. Gloria.
Thank you.
Take it away.
And thank you for that lovely introduction. My 90-year-old father and my husband discussed their trips to the moon for Bill. On the balcony, I hear my father speak of craters, their depth, their breadth, how he measured his lunar steps so as not to falter, sidestepping their cavernous mouths to peer in, his echo resounding in their hearts. He was on the moon's good side, the one that smiles and on occasion winks at Earth. With audible pride, he explains, he was a lone civilian on the mission, yet he was happy to come home. Yes, my husband says, it was wonderful for me too. Shepherd led me by the hand around the rim of Eratosthenes. My father laughs at the similarity of the crater's name to his own, Erasmus. He is glad Bill understands him, relieved someone else knows how desolate it can be out there. Not only desolate, Bill says, putting an arm around my father's frail shoulders. I also know how lonely it can get.
Oh, wow, nice.
My father had dementia, so, and Bill just went along with it. He was terrific that way.
That's beautiful, so beautiful.
Thank you, Gloria. That's a wonderful piece of work. It turns what is something that can be seen as tragic into something altogether extraordinary and reaching across the abyss, which is very difficult to do with people with dementia. And that said, the man to whom it is dedicated wrote the final poem. And I have some reason to believe, given a communication from Gloria, that it may well have been his final poem. I don't know that to be the case, and Gloria, I don't know if you do either. And if you do, please jump in.
It wasn't.
Oh, okay.
But it could have been.
Yeah, it kind of feels like it in a way. So the poem by William Wild Bill Hickok is going to be read again by his stepson, Paul Perez. It's called Whirling. And Paul, it's all yours.
Whirling by Bill Hickok. Gently, the wind from the bear meets the wind from the bird. They whirl together like gods in a tango, spinning around the island I call my own. A distant turnstile, the tornado of the sea is miles and miles away. It sleeps for many days, while our sweet dreams fondle that soft breeze that makes each of us our own island, that holds the blood of our being, the heat of our heart. I go at once into this soft embrace and dance to a distant star I now call home.
Just wow. Just okay, so much for my vocabulary. Just wow. Thank you, Paul. I'm glad to see that you're at home again. Good to see your smiling face, and
Thanks,
thank
Greg.
you for reading that.
Back at you. Thank you.
We miss you, Paul.
Thanks, BJ. I miss you as well.
Yeah.
All right, so we have one more poem in our panoply. And this is, of course, had to be by our founder, Bill Robertson. Nick gets honors once again to read Bill Robertson's poem. It's called Remember.
Thanks, Greg. Remember. I remember the aching, wondrous pain of love. I remember the slippery, sensual warmth of love. I remember the absolute exultation of beer. I remember the surprising stab of beauty, the tears that came with Wagner and with Verdi, the magic of a single tree, a drop of rain, a feather of snow, the small pink toes of my baby. I remember all of these. All of these I know. They are wrapped in my consciousness, a part of myself, part of my soul. All of these I know too. I know every boat I ever missed. I know every girl I never kissed. I know every poem I never wrote. All the songs I never sang, every note. I know all of these. The poet said, the bird has just a little way to fly. The poet said, the bird is on the wing. Go, go, my children, go and sing.
Wonderful.
Again,
Wow.
just wow.
Read. Wow.
Yeah, what a send-off.
Mm.
Yeah.
Are you
A
not
moment
reading,
of silence.
Greg? Are you not reading?
I've been talking too much.
Ah.
That's all
Have you
right.
got- Greg, have you got
I
something you were thinking about reading?
no.
Good one.
Go, Greg, go.
I'll have to go in and look for. How do I find it?
Just think of one of your faves.
No, I think I can find it. Give me a second.
I appreciate your hesitation, Greg. It's really a special moment. No, it really is. This collection of poetry is awesome. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I have a digital file, which is not the final file that I passed on. I don't know why I don't have something that is more final, shall we say? But I'm kind of moving through it to see if I can find it. And I'm moving through the file. And I'm moving through the file.
like wandering through the woods.
I see my name, so this must be it. So
good clue, detective.
Okay, so I have a confession to make. I persisted in the efforts to move the needle for Green Poets into a more conscious awareness of, shall we say, our duty of custodianship for the planet, and our relationship, really, with the planet.
Yes.
I think too much of Western history, particularly, is informed by the idea of man over nature, which we're seeing the impoverishment of as we face the climate crisis. But this is not about the climate crisis. This is not about any particular political issue. This is just my own particular take on, shall we say, the urbanscape. And I forget what it's called. A still insistence. After stop and go, hurry worry of the 405 radio blare, I finally arrived. I stopped the car. I'm sorry. I just got a pop-up. Sorry, I got a pop-up and I didn't see what it was. And I thought maybe the video needed to be dealt with. So I'll go back. Okay, a still insistence.
Yeah, the hell with it. Start over.
Okay, a still insistence. After stop and go, hurry worry of the 405 radio ablare, I finally arrived. I stopped the car, cut the motor, and I listened for the sound of silence. Instead, I hear The traffic's growl, bleat of a horn, thrum of a Cessna overhead, a noisy little packet of reality topped by a siren's wail, punctuating disconnect between reality and what is real.
Yeah.
Or somewhere beneath the din, grass grows, buds emerge from dormant stems, blossoms pop to trumpet spring, and slow as dawn, petal on petal, my world blooms again, silent herald to the gaudy day.
Oh,
So
Now that's a fitting end.
yes, well, all right, we'll leave it at that. I thought I would leave, I thought I would end with an epilogue. Here it is, and it's very short. This is by Leonard Cohen. And it is very simply this, one quick line: the cutting of the gem has to be finished before you can see whether it shines.
Oh, wow.
that guy. Oh,
That's
my
great.
goodness.
Thank you so much, Greg. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the poets. This was really lovely. I did want to mention, I said we didn't have the books online earlier. In fact, they are available through Amazon. I was mistaken. So I'm putting the link in the chat if anybody in the audience would like to get the book. It's in there. And additionally, you know, I just like to have, Jimmy, if you could switch everyone back to being sort of the full screen and just have everybody on screen to say goodbye. I think that would be great.
Yeah,
I'll just sort
that'd
of
be sweet.
wave goodbye to the audience. But you know, thank you to all the poets, and thank you to all the audience for being here. It's just lovely.
Yeah.
If I may, I don't believe in grading anything that has to do with the arts. It's all right for batting averages. And I've been going to poetry readings for a long time, including E.E. Cummings in 1956. But all that said, if I may contradict myself, this is the best goddamn reading by far of any I have attended. Of course, it was filtered in many ways, but god damn, what a reading. What a reading.
It was great. It was really great. So
Yes.
Jimmy's letting me know we're on gallery view. I had my view switched around. So if everyone could just you know, maybe say wave goodbye and thank you again, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night and God bless.
Thank you.
Now it's
Wonderful.
time to say goodnight. Quentin, let me leave by thanking you once again for bringing this to pass. It was a long, strange trip, to quote Jerry Garcia.
It was my pleasure. It's, you know, I think it was all of our pleasure here at Beyond Baroque. It's just, that's why we're here, is to support, you know, the work.
You know,
the poets.
but you done good.
That's what it looks
You
like.
done good.
I can't agree with that. I do agree with that. I think we've done very well. This reading was fantastic. So thank you all, and thank you, Greg, especially. Have a good night.
Good night.
All right, you too. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Peace. Have a great week.
Be well and right on.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Hey, Nick.